Your brand origin story can feel really daunting to create, but it is so important because it anchors people in a foundational story that they're going to use to decide if you are worth following, buying from, and paying attention to. And in this video, I'm going to share a framework that is incredibly effective at defining a simple yet compelling brand origin story for your brand. My name is Kaye Putnam. I'm the psychology-driven brand strategist. Thank you so much for being here. I help entrepreneurs get their genius out of their brain so that they can do the work that they're meant to do in this world. And part of that is telling your brand origin story. As the name suggests, your brand origin story is the story of why you came into be or how you came into be. What was the start of this business that you're creating? And I'm already teasing ahead to some of the pieces of the framework here, but we needed to first at least define what we're talking about. The places where you might share your brand origin story are on your about page of your website. If your founder or you as the visionary, the founder, are being interviewed on a podcast, or even just a welcome to your email sequence. This could be a fantastic place to share your brand origin story. Again, it's a really powerful tool to connect emotionally with your ideal client so they can make that discernment for if you are a brand that they want to follow and identify with or not. The framework has 3 easy pieces. I'll explain them quickly. I will share an example of my brand origin story, and then I will leave it to you to craft your own. First one is, how did you actually start? When was it? What was the context? What was happening in your life? What was that aha moment that you realized that you were going to start this business? Even if the business is decades or generations old, it can be really powerful to acknowledge where you came from. Think about Apple starting in the garage. What an amazing origin story or piece of context that is. It speaks to the brand's scrappiness. So what was that for you? Maybe it wasn't in a garage, but maybe you had some situation in your life that made you realize that this business or this brand was so necessary in the world. Second is, how have you evolved? You may have had humble beginnings, we all do, but where have you come from since then? What has that journey looked like in a few short sentences? What are you doing now? This is really powerful because it helps create credibility, where when we share our humble beginnings, that start, it's more about being vulnerable and connecting on that very human level of having that authenticity. But when we share what the journey has been so far, we're connecting those humble beginnings to everything that we've accomplished so far. So again, that creates some credibility and it helps establish us as the current player in the industry or in the market that we are. And then our third piece is, what is the mission? Or another way to think about this is, where are you going? What is the future of your brand? What is this change that you are intending to make in this world? So there you have it. Those are the 3 elements of the brand origin story framework. Where have you started? What was the evolution? And what is your mission or your vision from here? Let me take a stab at sharing mine. It's been actually a little while since I've been on a podcast or shared this story verbally, so hopefully I can do it justice. But here we go. So, as a newly married military spouse, I was living in Tennessee back in 2010 timeframe, and I had always been a high performer. I had gotten great grades in high school. I had actually run a really successful business when I was in college, but I needed to move away, shut it down. It was a local photography business, and I moved to Tennessee. I had a terrible time trying to find a job, And eventually I had to settle for this temp job at a bank in rural Tennessee. So I drove my little red Ford Escort that was at least 7 or 8 years old over the bridge, over the river to this job every day. And a moment struck me in that job as I was handing over these stale cigarette stained dollar bills to my lovely country clients in this bank. I realized that I was faking a Southern accent because I had been so tired of being called a damn Yankee or, "Oh, you're not from around here, are ya?" And these people were wonderful, but I felt like such an outsider, and I was working for minimum wage, delivering very little value to the world. And on top of that, I wasn't even being who I actually am in this world. Fast forward, I started working online. I started my personal brand. I got obsessed with figuring out how certain brands thrived or just grew exponentially and how other brands fizzled out and died. And I discovered this tool called brand archetypes, which allowed entrepreneurs to understand what their unique brilliance was and to translate that into outward facing cues. And using this framework, using this system, I was not only able to analyze all of the really successful brands that I saw in the market, but I was able to recognize my own strength and my own brilliance and my own innate advantages and build this brand. I've now worked with over, oh my gosh, I've been so lucky. I've worked with hundreds of one-on-one clients. I've had thousands of paying students in my brand courses, and we've now had over 200,000 people take my brand personality quiz. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I am on a mission to help entrepreneurs not only get their genius out of their brain and out into the world, but to do it in a way that is authentic and in alignment with who they really are. To help them design and decide exactly what their value is, and to do that for people. To essentially design your own job description to serve an impact in the way that is on your heart, that you know is going to create the biggest difference in this world. I want to help you be more you and to get paid very well for doing that. So there you go. I told you where it started, what that catalyst moment was. We rode the story up to talk about my evolution, how things grew from there. And then I shared with you a bit of my mission and my vision. Obviously, I shared it in more than just 3 sentences, but it could be condensed down into something incredibly short. It doesn't have to be that long. I gave you more of the podcast version there, but if I were to giving you more of the Cliff Notes version, it would be more like, back before I started my business, I was getting paid minimum wage, and I wasn't even being who I was in that role. I was putting on a mask and I was hiding. Through the power of branding, I realized that my biggest value would be if I was being myself and sharing all of my greatest gifts with the world. So I became a brand strategist and have seen incredible success working with hundreds of clients and thousands of students since then. I am on a mission to help you get your genius out of your head and into the world by being true to who you are and tapping into your innate advantages. So there you go. That's a shorter version, more of a 3-sentence version of that same brand origin story. So using this framework, you can now start to analyze some of the biggest brands in the world and the origin stories that they tell. Or perhaps more importantly, I hope you are an entrepreneur that is watching this that is going to craft your own brand origin story. And if you want additional help, if you want the longer version of this training, I teach it and I call it your low to high story in my course called Brand New Brand. You're not just creating a brand origin story. There's 22 other videos that walk you through everything from deciding your color palette to talking to your clients to everything in between. Basically fulfilling on my promise of helping you serve the world by being more of yourself. So check that out in the comments and let me know in the comments below, what is your brand origin story? I can't wait to read it. Be sure to click subscribe and that like button if you would like to see more videos on branding, entrepreneurship, and psychology. I deliver them most weekly, and I love hanging out with you here. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon.